I want to start with a question today. Where is your essence? Your real essence? Is it here? Is it somewhere here? Is it somewhere in your body? Or is it out there? This became such a big question for me, and I'll tell you why. But let me first take you 18 years back. I'm sitting in this nice, beautiful office in my cubicle in this one of those tall buildings in Istanbul, Turkey, in the European side. And I'm sitting there looking around, seeing all my colleagues, co-workers, either talking or working, but I can't concentrate on work that day. Because there's this big fight going on in my brain, in my mind, and they're fighting with each other. So the first voice is saying, come on, you can't do this. This is too crazy of a job to leave. You would be a fool to leave something like this. You gave your 11 years to get here. Don't take risks. You have to stay here. And then there was that other voice that was more gentle. It said like, this is not it for you. You have to move on. You can't live for your weekends only. You can't hate all your Mondays. There's more to life than this. You have to take the risk. And I'm sitting there tired, physically tired, because this has been going on for too long. And this fight is making me tired. And I feel like I have to give a decision. At the end of that day, that working day, I do make that decision. I am going to leave this corporate job. It's a big one for me, but I know I have to do it. And I leave the office, go to my car, and I decide to go and visit my parents. They're not living too far away, so it should be easy. But when I get into my car, I see that it's raining. And as it always does when it rains in Istanbul, the traffic is horrible. Even for that short amount of distance, I have to struggle with lots of congestion. I have cabs honking and everything, which I think has made me even more nervous to break the news to my parents. So I rang the bell. My mom answers in her pink, nice gown, and she has that soft cheeks that you can't help but kiss. So I kiss her, I go in. That's the house I grew up in. And I sit down, and I wait for my mom to sit down as well. So she does. And I said, Mom, I have big news for you. And she's kind of curious, but she's also anxious too. She's looking at me. And I said, Mom, I decided to leave my job at IBM. And oh my God, my mom's body language just changes all over. She just becomes pale first, then she gets all red in the face, and then as she always does when she's desperate or angry, her eyes get really big. I can see the white in her eyes. And she starts off. She says, how can you do this? This is so crazy. How can you leave a job like that? You're so lucky to have a job like this. Please don't think and do this. Please think it over. And I know she's looking for any room to change my mind, but she's not seeing it in me. And I heard that voice. That was the voice that was talking to me over all those years. That was my mom's voice. And I wasn't equipped enough, didn't have the language to tell her why I'm leaving this job. I had nothing logical to tell her. And anything like my voice told me so, I know wouldn't convince my mom. So I left that day. I know she was really disappointed, but I had to do it anyways. So the next day I go to work, and I did give my resignation letter. And when I looked around again, it made me feel different. I looked at all the people that I loved, that I worked together, my little cubicle with all my personal stuff. I knew I was going to miss that, a lot of parts of it. And I know it wasn't going to be so easy. But again, inside of me, I knew I was going to do it. I was doing the right thing. And a month passed by, and I had more news from my mom, like that wasn't enough for her. So I had to go back to her house and tell her that we're moving to the United States as a family. And that completely devastated her. She was again very disappointed, very unhappy, and she knew that she couldn't change my mind, but she was really devastated. She knew that she was losing the daughter who became her friend over the years, and not that alone, but I was taking her first grandchild away from her too. So I knew I had nothing to say. And I felt guilty, and that guilt stayed with me for many years to come. So we did move to the United States, and legally, and we thought it's going to be easy, because up to that point, my husband and I were part of that privileged group back in Turkey, maybe the 1% of people who got a good education. Because of that good education, we had good jobs. And because of the good jobs, we did have good money. We had good network. We had good support system. But we came with just a limited amount of savings here because we know we were going to make it. And it was not going to be so hard. But nothing was farther from the truth. It was really difficult at first. Because what I realized at first is that I was really somebody back there. And I became nobody here. A lot of things that I did not matter. And that made me think that I have built up stories along the way about myself. I was the daughter of an intellectual family. I was the graduate of this nice, great school, this nice college. And then I worked for this Fortune 100 company. How nice. That made up who I am. And now that I didn't have any of those, I had to look more deep inside. What was in there? And that's the first time I probably asked myself, what is my essence? Where is my essence? And I have to find that out on my own. And it had to be something that cannot be ripped away from me. It had to be something that stays with me wherever I work, wherever I live. So that big journey started that day. And I think it's still going on. But it is a big journey to take, I'm finding out even more. Because I found out what I really like to do. What I'm really passionate about, what are my strengths, what really brings meaning to my life. And that changed my life. And it not only changed my life, but it started helping others do the same too. Because when I did this work, I found out that this is really too important to neglect. And I thought I could help others do the same. So I got the training to help others, and I also built my business around it so that I can help other people do the same. Find their essence, find what their purpose is, what brings meaning to their lives. So I started doing that, and I did get a lot of wonderful people that I met over the years. Great, inspiring, brave, courageous clients that I have. One of them was a great businesswoman who was really great at what she did. She had a great title at a big company, and she was making more than a 6-digit income. But she also lacked something in her life. She didn't feel like she had enough meaning in her life. What her schedule looked and what matters into her life did not match. So I really was able to relate to her. And to my surprise, she did leave her job, and she did go for a big tour of the world almost to find out where she wants to live next. And she ended up living in New York. And I just saw her actually two weeks ago when I was visiting New York for a project, and she was beaming with light. Just like the Times Square of New York, she was really in the beam, and she was really feeling great about what she was doing, and she did thank me. That's the award, and that's the reward of doing something like this. When you have your own essence figured out, you give the right to do the same for all the others. That's what I started to see in my life. And as you're aligned with who you are, you know other things happened in your life too. Other doors open for you. And one of them was a non-profit organization. I always had this dream to help kids back in Turkey who were not as fortunate as I was to get a good education. And I know they needed a helping hand. And I didn't know how to do that, so I was always postponing to my retirement days. When I have a lot of money, I'll go and help them out. But there was this also special school that was special to my heart, because that was the school that my grandparents' names were given because they were teachers at the school at some time ago. And they're no longer here. But I really wanted to go and visit that school with my dad, who grew up there, and also take my son with me and help the kids back there. And through this non-profit organization, I was able to do that, which was a big deal for me. I was able to do a fundraising, get a lot of their needs in place, and we visited there as 3 generations, which was a big, big day for us. And as I help more and more people like myself who were stuck at their jobs, didn't know what to do next, how to bring more meaning to their lives, I found out that's only part of the equation. I found out over the years that businesses who have employed these unhappy people didn't know what to do with them either. So there were two sides of the story. So I started getting interested with the business side of this too. The businesses really did not know what to do because we stayed in this industrial mindset for too long. 150 plus years, we thought that the work is different than our personal lives. So we tried to separate ourselves instead of bringing the whole person to the workplace. And really, we awarded the left brain, not the right brain, so that we do become analytical and we can bring those skills, which is obviously still needed. But as the time went by, the industrial age also brought us a lot of abundance. We have a lot of choices. We can buy all the stuff we want. But over the years in the Western world, we started to understand that doesn't necessarily bring us happiness. That's why there's more and more people who want to live a more purposeful life. And the businesses really were not ready for this movement. They did not have an idea of how to cope with this. So I decided to help them as well, because we want these businesses to know their own essence as well, so that we know when we look for a job, they will match with ours. So the both sides are really important in this equation. And when you look at the future of work, the smart companies who are really trying to do this and are really getting successful at this understand that people who know their essence, who know what they want out of life, who know what they're passionate about, are the best ones to hire. Because that becomes your edge. That really becomes who you are, and they know that you're going to stick around, you're going to be more engaged, you're going to be more productive. And looking at all the studies there, 71% according to Gallup is not engaged. That's the reason being people are not liking what they do. They have never went through these questions, this discovery. They just had a job to pay the bills, which is obviously not enough. And if you watch or talk to the people in your family who are millennials, they are asking these questions right now at a very early age, which is great. So over all this work, working with individuals and also working with the other side of the equation, which are the businesses, I always see that it's never a luxury to ask what you stand for, what your essence is, because now it's really a necessity moving forward. And a lot of clients used to really ask me, can I ask those questions to myself? Who am I? What's my passion? What's my purpose? They always thought it's a luxury. It never was, but now, more than ever, it never is moving forward. It is a necessity to find out about these things. And when I look at the whole journey, starting at that cubicle to this day, that life that I was supposed to love, to this day, when I'm creating a life that I really love, a lot of things have changed. And it was a bumpy road. Don't think that I didn't have that record in my mind with the conversation I had with my mom. It happened a lot of days. A lot of times I did think, you see, my mom was right on all those difficult days. But on all the other days where I felt the freedom to be myself, I felt really good about my life. And what it also taught me is that I'm never alone anymore. Giving that decision that day was very difficult for me because I had no other examples around me that would leave the job that really looked perfect on paper. I really didn't know anybody like that. That's why I felt really alone. And now, when I look at my life, I'm surrounded with people like that. People looking for purpose wherever they go, not only at home, but at work and anywhere in any of their communities. So I'm happy that this is changing too. And it also has an impact on others. I have lived this through all the experiences that I have. Like I said, if we also take the time to ask those questions to ourselves in our quiet time, and sometimes like go down from our minds and brains to our hearts, drop to our hearts, we can really hear that voice too. I just wasn't heroic or brave or extraordinary courageous to give those decisions. I just didn't know how to stop that voice. So it was easy for me because I had no other choice. But I know all of us have that voice if we are careful enough to listen to that. So I really believe that if we all do that, we can change the world one person at a time, one business at a time. And it's last February. My parents are here to visit us, as they always do. And it happened to be at the same time that my first book was getting published. So I was waiting for the first few copies with excitement. And those 3 copies arrived at a rainy day where we were all at home. My son was at home, my husband, my parents, and we were sitting in the living room, and I got the first 3 copies and really got excited about them. And I tried not to think that my parents were there because I didn't want to be attached to what they will think about it. But my mom got a copy, took it to the dinner table, and sat at the same chair that she always does. She crossed her arms like she always does when she reads a book to keep it open, and she started reading. And after a few hours, which is the part that I really tell about my personal story of the book, she looked up when I was in the room. She looked me in the eye and said, "Darling, I can feel where you are now. I get it now. You did create a life that you love, and I really see it, and I know you're happy." So that was a big moment for me. My mom got my essence. Thank you.